What's up, everybody, and welcome back. This is the Week 4 recap and Week 5 preview show for the PPR podcast. I'm Chase Izidoro. As always, I'm joined by our South Bay Game of the Week reporter, Bowe Fertig. Bowe, there's no way we can talk about any other game first unless we start talking about Lincoln and Mater Dei. That was a phenomenal performance on both sides of the ball. Obviously, we can talk about Roderick Robinson, and we will, but
Yes.
I want to talk about that Lincoln defense first. Just the amount of pressure they got on Dominic Nankill throughout the entirety of the game, and especially in that second half when they needed to force their way back in.
Right.
I mean, I was blown away.
Yeah, it started from the middle of that front, from Journey Tala to Rashad Scott, the sophomores, to the edges with Chris Fuel and David Peavy. They were applying pressure all night long. And then you drop to the secondary, Josiah Cox, Joshua Carroll had an interception. I thought Chris White, out of all the corners, played exceptionally well during that night. He was really on McClure, it seemed like the whole night, and did a really good job in just shutting them down step for step. He was step for step all night
And
with the receivers.
the pressure, too, to just I felt so bad for Dominic Nankill sometimes because he didn't give up at all, but he kept fighting and it just wasn't there. And we saw him in the game against Cathedral where he would roll out and he had the athletes that would get open.
Right.
But like you said, the DBs just had the clamps. There was nowhere to go. The amount of times he had to forcefully throw the ball out of play, you could just see the frustration just build and build. And
Right.
Lincoln really just, took away any thought that they had of getting back into that game.
It starts up front.
Yeah.
You know, whenever you talk about a good secondary, when you're able to apply pressure on the quarterback, the secondary can stay with a single route. They don't have to worry about a double move. There's a lot of things that they don't have to worry about when the pressure is coming on the quarterback. We saw that with Joshua Carroll. That RPO, he knew that ball was coming hot because Nankill was getting pressure and stepped in front of that slant route. So it was a well-executed game, well-drawn-up game by that Lincoln defense.
And just so much energy on the pass rush, too. Seemed like they never got tired. They were always hungrier for the next sack or the next rollout. I mean, Micah Valenzuela, you mentioned Journey Tala, who's a sophomore. I mean, they balled out on then you have the outside guys who might just be the two best pass rushers in San Diego with
the best combo.
The best combo, definitely. I'd have to say that. That Lincoln defense just blew me away. And they were just so hungry, and I just love to see it. But we obviously have to talk about Roderick Robinson.
Before we get into that, because you mentioned it, Coach Dunn at halftime said, he was mostly talking about Robinson, but you can tell it was for the whole squad, that he's going to get stronger, and that Lincoln team got stronger. That is a great recipe to let everyone know who is the better team, who's the best team in the county. And when a team gets stronger, and when you see another team not able to live up or play up to those expectations like Mater Dei did in that second half, they were the best team by far.
And I think, for anybody out there who's looking at Mater Dei's record at 0-4, and you're saying, maybe the D3 to D1 move was too much, maybe they're not with the best of them, maybe they can't handle this, I'm having none of it. Absolutely none of it. They can easily be 2-2 in this year. We both have said that many a times. And that only adds to what Lincoln did to them on Saturday night. It's not a discussion of they're not up for it. They were definitely up for it. That Lincoln team just took any thought that they had in their minds of beating them that night. It was incredible what they did. Yeah,
there just wasn't many adjustments made by Mater Dei, which was a bit surprising. They stayed in the open backfield. They just didn't. Usually when you see a lot of pressure coming off of the edges, you add a tight end or, the running back steps up and makes a block. But it was... I was just surprised that there just wasn't many adjustments made on that side of the ball.
And, then we have to talk about Roderick Robinson,
yes,
which,
let's.
When I was up there, I was on top of the press box. This was in the second half, and I had to make sure to get the stats back to you guys. So I had to focus on making sure that was done.
And you did a great job.
And then also, thank you. And then also watching the game. Every time Mater Dei punted, I made sure that I dropped everything that I did because there was a 50-50 chance he was taking it to the house.
Right.
And I believe he did almost live up to those odds. I mean, that was one of the most incredible performances I have ever seen any sport anywhere. It was just, and to do that to that team, that Mater Dei team has so many D1 players on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
And just the angles those guys were taking to try to tackle him, and then for him to just leave them in the dust, incredible. I still can't believe 32 rushes, 476 yards, 8 touchdowns, tied Dorian Richardson, Jamal McClendon, Mac Bingham for the most rushing touchdowns in the game. His 476 yards is third all-time. Dorian Richardson holds both those with 499 and 493. Also, shout out to EC Preps, who's at Twitter at EC_Preps_SD for giving us all the stats. We thank you for that.
Yep.
An all-time performance for one of the best players I think I've seen in high school.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, we talked about his speed, we talked about his size, but I think what was on site that night was, and everyone got a taste of it, was his patience and balance. There was that one run where he went down, pulled himself up with one arm, did another 360 to get out of it, and then just his patience as well. Those are the characteristics that you look for in a running back at the next level. And yeah, to see his speed on display against a very fast secondary in Mater Dei, at points it just looked like they were standing there, which they weren't, but it just goes to show you the speed. He kept up with his 14 yards per carry average, which is impressive against that Mater Dei defense. Trey Edwards was still there.
Yeah.
So the fact that he did...
I had him for 2 tackles for a loss in that game, which when you look at Roderick Robinson's stat line, it seems like an incredible achievement in itself.
Right.
You know, so it wasn't like they didn't have nobody in there. He just still ate like he's always going to do.
Coach Dunn and that coaching staff did a tremendous job that night. They definitely need to pat themselves on the back for that one.
Yeah, and you know, I think when it comes to Rod, and getting the opportunity to go on primetime that we offered.
When the lights were the biggest, the best players show out, and that's exactly what Roderick did that night.
And, you know, I do love that Lincoln kept him in there. I don't know if they knew where he was in consideration to the stats.
I actually saw on Twitter, Coach Carter posted that his teammates were telling Coach Carter to keep him in the game. They want to see an athlete like that who puts in the work week in and week out to give him what he's... You talk about putting in all the hard work. To give him that is just a gift after putting
the shining
in all that
moment
work.
when the lights are the biggest on TV, when he can showcase himself.
Right.
I have no problem with them sticking him in there. On the other hand, you know, obviously they kept him in there because they don't know if he's going to be breaking the record or going close to it, but they knew that he was close to something.
Right.
On the other hand, I do also believe a little bit of it was they wanted to send a message. I think they had no problem running up that score. And I think if they would have gone for 70 points, they would have taken that easily. It
was the first time they played against a San Diego team, so we weren't exactly sure what type of team they were because they hadn't played local competition. And when they did, they made the most of it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, here at the PPR, as we say, we're here for all of you. We have no favorites. You guys are all our favorites. And we want to, you know, uplift everyone and have all your light shine. In this San Diego football family, I kind of like it there's a little bit of hate in it at times. I kind of like it that there's a little bit of rivalries, or at least to the point of, you know, hate from an athletic perspective. On the field, we want to beat you, and we want to beat you guys bad. I like it, because now that's bulletin board material for Mater Dei.
Right.
Because, you know, there's a very good chance, who knows what happens in the Western
I don't
League.
See them just laying down and throwing in the white flag.
No.
Coach Joyner has those guys ready.
No, yeah, exactly.
No, he'll have them ready after this week.
And, you know, we don't know what will happen in the Western League.
They're coming,
they could match up again in the D1 playoffs.
They're coming into a bye week, too, which is much needed because it looked like they were just getting banged up towards the end of that one.
Yeah, so I love that there's a little bit of rivalry there, and that they also want to send a message because they know who they have coming up in their schedule as well for Lincoln. So they want to put everybody on notice.
Both
that we're
sides
the
of
real
that
deal.
ball for Lincoln were impressive. We'll talk about that top 5 later in the show.
Yeah.
But
on to the game of the week, though. Cathedral versus Helix, which was obviously a highly anticipated matchup. And like you said last week, we kind of anticipate maybe a defensive battle, which is what we got. You know, obviously there's a little bit of a, you know, the fumble that ended up being a touchdown. But at the end of the day, Helix got the ball back, and Cathedral stopped them, got the interception. It was a great PBU by Victory Johnson. Sean Kagan got the interception. So even if that fumble didn't count, that's now an interception where they could probably go down, score the game-winning touchdown.
And the Helix coaching staff even came out and said it should have never gotten to that point.
Yeah, which I love. They've all taken accountability. Like this, it's not coming down to that play.
Right, and that game was really big for Helix because they don't play against another open division caliber type of team down the stretch. So they really needed to win that. But because the game was so close, I know pollsters will look at that and say, hey, they were a half yard away from winning that game.
Yeah, and I don't take anything negative towards them. I think they still played a great game. Sure, it could have been better on the offensive side. But to hang with Cathedral is, you know, that's no easy feat to do. And they very well could have won that game if that fumble goes out for a touchback, you know. So, Helix I still have very much at the top as the best teams in San Diego.
Rylan Jesse had 9 touchdowns, 0 picks before this week, and we talked about he'll need to play a game, his best game of the season, an airless game as far as turnovers. And those turnovers definitely play an impact when you play against a top team like Cathedral.
And we talk about when you go against those big teams and when the big teams go against each other, the margin for error is so small. You can't have those and expect to win the game, but they still hung with it. So, but obviously, I really liked what I saw from your South Bay game of the week.
Yeah, as well. I did as well. I wasn't sure exactly what to expect, but Dante Scott, I saw him live, and he was impressive on both sides of the ball. Started the game with a sack, then got injured on the second drive, came back in, made impact plays on the outside, separated from the secondary, got on the other side, and just made big play after big play. One of his biggest plays was called back, so we weren't able to show it, but he was impressive all night long. And on the other side, and it was nice to see Coach Arciaga get his first win at Bonita Vista. It was a convincing win this year. At least his first win this season, not his first win as a head coach there. But it was nice to see him get his first win of the season and a convincing win. And then on the other side for Hilltop, 6'1", 225-pounder Tyron Washington had one of the more impressive runs that I had seen all season long. And he played both ways. He played in the trenches. He was a defensive tackle. He had a strip sack fumble, which was impressive. And then, so he had a 40-yard touchdown run, broke off of like 4 or 5 different tackles. And then the very next possession on defense, he had a strip sack fumble. So Washington was impressive. When I think of the big bruising backs, I think Roderick Robinson, I think Demarion Wright out of Morris, Major Givens, McMillan out of Mater Dei, and then I put Washington in that top 5. He was that impressive.
Wow. Yeah, definitely someone we'll have to watch going forward as well.
Yes, do.
And then also, it being their first win, kind of an upset as well. A lot of upsets this week,
It was upset week.
It definitely was.
Week 4.
Definitely for the Dogs this week. One that, maybe they're a little bit closer in terms of ranking, but anytime you're starting that many freshmen, it's going to be an upset if you pull off a win, especially a convincing win like Saints pulled off with a 45-7 win over Steel Canyon. Brady Palmer, 410 yards, 5 touchdowns. Ron Gladnick told me, keep him a secret for as long as you can. Secret's out, coach. He balled out, and I expect more from him coming down the stretch. Obviously, it's going to get a lot tougher from here. Helix, Mater Dei, Scripps Ranch, which could be a very winnable game. Scripps Ranch is up for the task, though. And then Lincoln, Madison, and the Holy Bowl against Cathedral. Saints getting 2 wins coming into this one. If they could sneak 2 more somehow,
it's nice for
that would
confidence.
be incredible.
It's good for confidence, but it's going to be a tough stretch down towards the end of that schedule. And it's nice to see Palmer use his arms and his legs. He's that dual threat quarterback, so when he does get in trouble, very similar to Nankill, he's able to elude the pressure and open things up that necessarily aren't there. When the play breaks down, he's almost at his best.
Yeah, definitely. And, now they get that testing ground where they might lose out the rest of these games. They very well could. But it's going to be, how do we perform? How do we test up against these guys? So, they're playing with house money at the moment. Another big matchup was the North County game of the week as well.
Yeah, LCC beating Mission Hills 13-10. A great defensive battle on both sides, as we expected out of the Avocado League. LCC's Caden Miller with 9 tackles on the night. He was impressive on the defensive end. And Andrew Mays with the game-winning touchdown. So you like to see that. Tyler Robles, we talked about, those turnovers and special teams. Tyler Robles, a 47-yard field goal and a 46-yard field goal. Those are the type of plays that win you close games, and Robles was clutch when he needed to be.
Especially in that closely contested battle where nothing's going right really for anybody on either side. I believe Mission Hills scored a touchdown off their pick 6. So, in those situations, you need those big kicks, and to kick them from 40 yards plus, huge moment for him as well. So,
40 yards are equivalent to a 50-yard field goal in the NFL. And 3 or 4 yards away from a 50-yard. They weren't like 41, 42 yards.
And they didn't just scrape the bar or anything. They had some distance going off the back end of it as well. So, that's a huge win, especially for the Avocado League. We'll get into a little bit more of that later. But
another big upset, La Jolla Country Day and Escondido Charter came in at 3-0. What'd you think of that one?
So also, both teams were at 3-0. And the White Tigers going from D5, beating a D4 team. Someone we don't really cover that much. Someone, they'll make their appearance every once in a while on the show. But now we're going to have to. Going 4-0. Skylar McMahon, 5 touchdown passes in the last game. they look really good, and that's what we got from Mike Milburn as well. He said, "Wow, I was really surprised to see how well they play." So we're gonna have to cover the White Tigers a bit more.
Yeah, and Mike Milburn knows his stuff better than anyone else. We talked about Del Norte last week. That's, it's always funny when you talk a team up and they don't.
Yeah.
It's not that they disappointed. They played a great La Jolla team at La Jolla.
Yeah, that's always a tough place to play as well.
Coach Roach and that coaching staff, Coach Kiki, Coach Chris, always have those guys ready at home. Scully, their running back, their senior, over 100 rushing yards. He now has over 100 rushing yards in three of the three contests that he's played. You look at their quarterback. Jackson Deal. We talked about him being the real deal, right? 11 touchdowns, 1 interception on the season. So that offense is looking really good right now, and that defense just seems to bring it week in and week out. So that La Jolla Viking team is going to be someone to keep an eye on.
And they now moved to, I believe, 3-1 on the season as well. They look really good, and that's a very big win for them. And then we also had some kind of record-breaking moments. Obviously, Roderick Robinson with his moments, but around the county, someone who keeps his name popping up on this show, San Marcos freshman quarterback.
We almost, because we talk about him so much, we almost need to come up with like a hey Makaheli, something like that, because this guy, week in and week out, he broke the San Marcos record. There's
7 touchdowns, 400 yards.
Great stuff, man. And Jason Texler is back at his old place, so it's just great to see him back in the driving seat doing great things with that offense.
And we talked about Brady Palmer earlier, and now it's Crete, and we've talked about him a lot. The freshman just balling out, and it's so cool to see that, wow, we're really in good hands for a couple of years now. But he's got a 73% completion percentage through the start of the season.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
1,400 yards, 19 touchdowns, 3 picks, averaging 355 yards a game. The only loss they had was to Mir Mason. It was a close loss, and Mir Mason's a good team. San Marcos, we keep talking about him being back and the real deal.
Right.
But this Crete kid is the real deal.
Well, you need help on the outside.
Absolutely.
And we can definitely say San Marcos has the best trio of wide receivers in Cummings, Ball, and Nix. All those guys, whether it's one or the other, they all seem to do well. And whether it's 3, I believe Cummings and Nix had 3 touchdowns apiece this last week. So, we saw Ball that first week, Ball out. So it's week in and week out, man. It's just one or the other. You can't, even like a team like Mater Dei, if you shut down McClure and Buncombe, you shut down that offense for the most part. Yeah. This is a team where you shut down one of those guys, you still have 2 other guys to worry about.
It's impossible to cover all of them.
Right.
And then when you have a guy completing passes at 73% rate, that's incredible. So, everyone, we keep saying it, go watch San Marcos.
It will be interesting because we have the Underclassmen of the Year award, and we've never put a freshman on that podium. But if he keeps putting up numbers like this, we almost have to.
And then we have a couple other, sophomores in there as well, like Ty Elson from Del Norte, who he's balling out every week. Yeah. The Underclassmen have been so impressive.
Ty Elson had another 3 touchdowns, 10 receptions for over 100
it's
yards.
like how many times I just look up when watching the show, and it's like he's breaking off another one down the sideline. It's incredible. Just so many good young players in San Diego.
You talk about sophomore players. Yeah. Christian Noriega of Olympian broke the school record, 5 passing touchdowns, 3 to Jake Marcial, 1 to Javon Jordan, and 1 to Gavin Dominguez. They had an impressive win, 49-0 over Valhalla. It's great to see that program on the up right now. Jimmy Clark's doing a really good job. And the storyline coming into this week is Jimmy Clark, old Spartan, went to Chula Vista. I played with him in the early 2000s. Coached there with Bannister as the head coach. Coach Bannister and Chula Vista now go to Olympian to play the homecoming game. And there's a few players on that coaching staff. Nate Flowers is the offensive line coach, and Lonnie Brookins is a coach there as well. Those guys went to Chula Vista. So there's going to be a lot of hype around that homecoming at the O this week. So that's going to be a fun one to keep an eye on. But congratulations to Christian Noriega.
And it's great as well, seeing them come back because their season was cut short last year. So it's great to have these storylines for them. Right. And I also got to give a shout out to someone else who's also, at least him and his team, RBV's quarterback, Connor Underhells, just set the new RBV record for most career passing touchdowns in school history and moves RBV to 4-0. That team, they just won't go away. And every single time, it's another big performance from someone, another big standout performance, high-powered offense. I love watching them, and I can't wait to see what they do in D3 as well. And also, that's a big moment where you go down in history as the career passing touchdown leader for your school.
We talk about top 10, and we're going to get into that right now, but that's a team that's just outside of the top 10 that's looking in. And their wins are convincing. There's something to say about a convincing win. And I think we can say Lincoln didn't run up the score. They were just simply trying to make the score look as good as possible, because when it comes down to the seedings, they want to show that not only did we beat a good team, but we beat them convincingly, and that's what RBV is doing right now.
They're definitely in that same boat where they're like, hey, we got to beat everyone and put as many points on the score for ourselves, not for anything against them.
I agree.
So, might as well just get into our top 10. If you want to do yours first, go right ahead.
I was going to say you first, but I will go ahead and go first. I can't go back on my words from last week. No San Diego team has beat Cathedral Catholic, and that remains the same. So I have them as 1A, but there hasn't been a more dominating team this year than Lincoln, so we'll go 1B. There's still a lot of weeks to be played, so I have them 1A, 1B. And then Madison has been impressive. They had an impressive win Saturday over a good Ramona team. I have them at 3, and then Carlsbad, still the best pure passer in the county, and they play in a tough Avocado League. So I have them at 4, and then outside looking in, Helix and Poway. Those teams, unfortunately, don't play against a tough schedule like those top 4 teams, so I have them on the outside looking in. And you talk about impressive wins, those teams are going to need to put together some impressive wins in order to scratch in that top 4.
So for my top 5, I too said last week that, unless somebody from San Diego beats Cathedral.
And you could go back on your word.
Dogs,
that's okay.
I'm going to need us.
You're human.
Someone needs to go back and just take that out of the podcast. Because I'm going back on my word.
Right.
What I saw from Lincoln and what I saw them do to a very good Mater Dei team. They're number 1.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And it's nothing against Cathedral.
Nope.
But they have looked the most impressive on both sides of the ball. I think their quarterback play has been better. You could just even look at the wide receiver options. Corey Thompson-Miller played well. Makai Gray, Aiden Billups also had great moments in that game. So it's not like it's just the Roderick Robinson show. They have the weapons on offense. And then, oh, by the way, you have Roderick Robinson. It's that offense is really good. That defense, I think you can make the argument that they're up there with Cathedral and arguably just as good as them. They have the star talent on there, just like Cathedral has star talent. Their pass rush might be better. I think Lincoln's the better team right now. So I got them at number 1.
That's okay.
And I got them, I'm moving up 3 spots. I believe I had them at 4. Cathedral at number 2. I got Madison moving up to number 3.
Yep.
Helix I have dropping down to 4 and Carlsbad at 5.
Yeah. There's a
it's hard because
discussion to be had for that.
Because I still think El Camino is a good team, and they took it was very close with Carlsbad.
Right.
But I think Helix probably is a little bit more well-rounded than Carlsbad at this moment. I think that if they played each other, it'd be a fantastic game. I'd love to see that.
One guy we did mention quickly was KJ Chatham.
Yeah.
He looked really good, really poised under pressure,
coming off an ankle injury, so he looked
that
great.
was the big question mark last week out of Lincoln, and KJ Chatham answered any question we had, any question mark, any mystery that we thought he might be injured, that he just might not be that guy because he didn't start week 3 against St. Bonaventure, but he was just as impressive as anyone else. That he just looked, he was very decisive in his movements as well, in his throws. So I thought KJ Chatham was just as impressive as anyone else.
And he just had to play short yardage. I think they had was it Raylon Logan who did the double pass? That was probably the longest throw they had the whole night. Everything was just short yardage, keep him honest.
They did get over the top on one. It was a fake bubble screen, and the receiver leaked out. But no, I thought Chatham lived up to the hype, and really, it gives you the argument to say Lincoln is a number 1 team because I think that quarterback mystery is now answered.
Yeah, I think they have to be considered the top dogs at this moment.
I get it, man.
The rest of my top 10, I have Poway at 6, Mir Mesa, even though they did not play, I have them at number 7. San Marcos, who I had unranked, is now at number 8. LCC, who I had unranked, is now at number 9. And I have Mission Hills dropping to number 10. I have Mater Dei slipping out of my top 10. I
think they would completely understand that.
I hope
at this point.
They got my phone number, dude. I hope
they would have to fight themselves back into this top 10.
I still fully believe that they're one of the top 10 teams in this county, if not even higher. I would say also about 95% of the teams who play their schedule would also be 0-4.
Right.
So I had nothing against them, but at the same time, it's got to be earned and not given at this point, especially with other teams performing so well. So, I expect them to be back in the top 10.
We talked about our top 4, and Mater Dei's played against 3 of those top 4 teams.
So So I got them on the outside. Some other outsiders looking in. Obviously, Ramona falling because of their loss. Central not being able to play, so that I couldn't move them up. I still fully believe in them. And then Granite Hill's also been playing very well.
Yeah,
I got them just on the outside looking in right now.
Yeah.
So that's our top 10. So we might as well start off with the preview for this next week, and we got a great slate of games. I cannot wait for this. Game of the week will be Mission Hills at Carlsbad. Mission Hills with a bad, I guess a bad loss to LCC. Tough loss would be a better way of putting it. But then at Carlsbad, which will be a very hyped atmosphere. Huge game for the Avocado. Huge game for the Open Division. I cannot wait to see what happens in that one. And I want to see how Carlsbad reacts because it was a close game against El Camino. But Mission Hills is very much a very good team. And can they cause the same problems that El Camino caused? I don't know if they have those guys up front.
Both those programs have a great coaching staff.
Obviously, yeah. I mean, it's going to be a good one. I expect Sayin to have a very good game, though, as well.
Yeah, you mentioned it as well. It's great to see players like Sayin and just programs like both of those programs, when they do have tough games, how do they respond?
Yeah.
Let's see how they respond next week, and I think both teams will respond with a quality game for our game of the week. It's the reason why it's a game of the week.
And then, we have another huge matchup in the north as well. 3-1 San Marcos at 2-2 La Costa Canyon. With both of those games for the Avocado going on, meaning, two teams are taking losses this week. It's going to have huge implications not only for the league, but, LCC, if they could pull off another win against San Marcos is a team that can, force other teams to lose. This could be huge for them as well. They're in D1 as well. So,
it'll be nice to see how that offense of San Marcos goes up against the defense of LCC.
Yeah, definitely.
After slowing down Mission Hills last week.
Absolutely. And, the last time San Marcos was put in a real testing ground position, it was against Mira Mesa, lost a close one, and now it's another chance for them to all right, we get another chance to prove ourselves against a top quality team. So I wouldn't be surprised if San Marcos comes out hot again.
And there's something to say for, even Mater Dei, like pre-stacking their pre-league schedule.
Yeah.
It's like, I almost give you more kudos. Like, good for you for stacking your schedule like that. I'd much rather see a team go out that way than the opposite. And Avocado League teams don't even have to do that because they play a tough league schedule. So San Marcos gets not a redemption game, but they get to save face and say, we are this team. They go up against a defense that's only allowing 13 points per game. So it's going to be a great matchup to watch.
And then on the other side of that, they're scoring 42 points per game. So it's which one's going to break the other. I can't wait to watch that. So big games in the Avocado this week. But then we move on to our Jersey Mike City game of the week. 2-2 Christian at 3-1 Point Loma. The Pointers look good.
Yeah.
A very convincing win against West Hills. Christian team always is going to be tough. But I expect Point Loma to come out strong again. Now they get the.
We talked about those city teams.
Yeah.
So if it's a flip coin. Or a coin.
Flip coin.
Let me flip that. If it's a coin flip, I'm going with any city team.
Yeah.
Just city team, the city league just is impressive right now. They put up points and they D up.
And I think until I can see someone start to put up points at the same rate they can in those games they play against them, I'm gonna have to lean the same way.
Right.
That Christian team though, we have seen them put in some good performances. A bit of a slow start so far this year, but they're gonna have a tough test against Point Loma. This Point Loma senior group is very, very good, and we talked how experienced they are playing with each other.
Our North County game of the week actually got changed.
Yes.
Rancho Bernardo del Norte.
Yes, and that's gonna be a good one too. Del Norte coming off of not a bad loss at La Jolla, but they had high expectations to keep going.
They still had a chance to win it at the end of that game.
Yeah, and so now it's how can they bounce back? RB also a team that's been very slow to the start of the season, so this could be another opportunity for Del Norte to show that all right, let's get back together. Let's get things moving again.
Right. I expect Del Norte to win this one by a sizable margin. Jack Snyder, Ty Olson. Ty Olson, once again, had another big game. Yeah. It'll be the first time we put a sophomore on the podium. Who knows? It just might be that year where we switch things up. We're showing live games now. So
might as well.
Why keep that trend going? And then Chris Guzman in the backfield. Del Norte just has too much firepower. I think they're going to put up at least 40 in that game.
Yeah, I can see it, definitely.
And then my South Bay game of the week, Mission Bay traveling to Montgomery. We know Mission Bay can put up a lot of points. Montgomery allowing less than 10 points per game on the defensive side. Coach Dunkel always has that program ready. It'd be interesting to see if that offense could keep up with Mission Bay's offense, because we know the Buccaneers are going to put up points.
Yeah, definitely. And it's going to be another one of those of like, who breaks who? Is the defense that doesn't allow stuff going to break the offense that scores that much?
Right.
And who adjusts to the game? I think it'd be a lot tougher for Montgomery to keep up with the points that Mission Bay could put up. So they're going to really need to.
Montgomery's 3-1 this year.
Yeah, they
so
are.
It's been a great start to their season. This is a test week.
Definitely.
For the Aztecs.
Definitely. And big kind of a test week for Mission Bay as well, because
I
need
agree.
to see how they can do against a good defense.
Right.
And then we get to the out to the East County for the Elk of Hone Ford East County game of the week. 2-1 Central at 3-1 Granite Hills. This is going to be a really good one. This Central team, people are sleeping on them. They really are. There's a lot of good players, but same with Granite Hills. They've beat some teams very convincingly. Will be the biggest test, I think, for both of these squads. We've already seen Central take down Point Loma.
I think this is the best East County game of the week that I can think of right now.
It's really good. And catching these teams at this time as well. Charlie Sullivan, the running back for Central, he's 500 yards and 7 touchdowns already this season. He had a monster season last season. But someone to, we always talk about Joaquin Thomas as the guy to watch for Granite Hills. But
he's still the most electrifying player on this field.
But Maxwell Turner has been on a tear for the Eagles, at least in recent games, running the ball, and I believe he's a sophomore as well. So it'll be a great matchup to see, and kind of another testing ground game. You see who these teams are when you go against these really tough opponents. So
I actually called this game, and I called Parlon Parian. So shout out to Parlon and not crucifying me for getting his name wrong.
Yeah, we got a T-shirt coming in for you.
We do. I told him, and he was a great sport about it. So I do appreciate that, Parlon. In doing that game in the highlights, it was just a variety of names that were scoring. Yeah. And you love to see that from an Eagles team. It's not just one guy. We know about Joaquin Thomas, obviously. But when it comes from just a slew of players, it's like that is, to me, the depth of that team is something that has been overlooked.
Definitely.
Up into the season.
And they could very well push themselves into the top 10 with a big win against Central.
I agree.
So last things to talk about. We both saw it.
And I have something as well. I didn't tell you, and it just came to my mind.
Go right ahead.
No, you go. I just wanted to make sure before you signed off.
One of the best things was watching a freshman in Christian Washington take it to the house.
Yes.
I mean, and it was so good you could hear him say, go, 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 after catching the ball halfway in the end zone and just take it to the house. As a freshman, that's got to be so cool in the college level.
Right.
Man. I was standing up, I had it on the TV on Friday night when we were putting the show together, and I just remember hearing Christian Washington and just looking, and I started screaming. I'm surprised they didn't hear me on set.
You never know how fast a player is until he gets to the collegiate level. He hit that seam, and no one was catching him. He was shot out of a cannon. It was impressive to watch. And I'm a Christian Washington fan. The state championship game, he had 40-plus touches. In the CIF championship game, 40-plus touches against great defenses. I've never seen that in my career. I don't think I'll ever see that in my career. Yeah. Just a guy that can carry the load. Yeah. And it's great to see a local product like that. And it's like, man, why didn't San Diego State get a guy like that? But they had lucky. They have Bell still, so that backfield room was full, and it's just great to see Washington.
And as a freshman too, because most of the times you might get redshirted.
He's a redshirt,
and
man.
there's he had a lot of carries in the first game. I believe they were blowing the team out, and they put him in.
Right.
So I was expecting, all right, what's he going to do in the second game? And I didn't see him, and then next thing you know, he's just taking it to the house on a kickoff return. So cool to see, man. I hope he keeps balling out.
I agree. So the one thing I would like to touch on is, and I don't think it's talked about enough right now, and it seems like it's going more towards the officials and having them have more of, well, here, let me start here. Jalen Hall had that touchdown. He spun the ball and went towards his sideline. Yeah. There was no level of disrespect towards the other team. When you're a player, you're a football player. Yeah. There's so much emotions that go into this game, and you're going to have more failures sometimes than successes. So when you succeed in scoring a touchdown, allow that player to enjoy the moment.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? To me, right now, the officials just have too much say in what's going on in the game, and I think more of that power should be taken away from the officials. Yes, for calling a game, I understand that. But when there's a player who succeeds and scores a touchdown, as long as that line of disrespect is not crossed, then I'm okay with the player enjoying the moment, living in the moment. These guys wake up early, they go to school. They have two jobs, to go to school and play football. And if you've never done either one, then talk to a player and understand the sweat and tears that goes into this game, the energy, just everything about it. When you have those moments, you should be able to celebrate those moments. And when someone does a spin of a ball and they get flagged for it, or a slam of the ball and they get flagged for it, man, that just grinds my gears.
Yeah.
I really hope the officials look back at that. Like I said, there's a level of disrespect. If he spins that ball, looks at a player and taunts him, throw the flag all day. But if he's enjoying the moment, you have to let him go and not flag him for that.
And, a lot of these kids, we talk about some kids who are going to get D1 offers, or going to go to play ball. A lot of these kids aren't. And they might not even be the ones that score the touchdown.
You're right.
But they work with those kids that are getting the D1 offers. And so they want to celebrate with them just as much as the other. And those kids want to celebrate with the kids that this will be their last year of playing football.
It possibly could be that person's best moment in his whole high school career.
Ever, yeah.
And you're taking away from him enjoying that moment. Yeah, yes, what the officials are saying is go enjoy that moment with your team on the sideline. But when the energy's going, man, and you score that touchdown, there's no better feeling in sports. I'm sure a slam dunk is great. I've never been able to get above the rim in basketball. Yeah. A slam dunk in basketball, a home run in baseball, and a touchdown in football. Like, those are the accolades. Those are the moments where there's no better feeling in sports.
And I agree. As long as we're not crossing a particular line, just let the kids play.
Yeah.
Just let them have their fun. Obviously keep it in line, because you don't want to lose the hold of the game, especially as a referee, because then they cross the line, they're going to want to retaliate in some way. I fully understand that. But spinning the ball, everybody wants to spin the ball. As long as they're not, doing some crazy.
And not everyone's able to do it.
Yeah, as long as we're not seeing some Key and Peele type of celebrations out there, you know what I mean? I think everything else should be in play, and just let the kids play. Because, we know how hard it is for the officials as it is, with how stretched they are, inexperienced, and we know how it's going to be tough in between the game. You don't need to add any more pressure with throwing flags for stuff that doesn't need to be.
And it's not on the officials. They're just doing what they're told.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's nothing against them, but I think it's something that definitely should be revisited over the offseason.
Absolutely. Well, that's where we're going to leave it for this week, guys, and we'll see you next week after a great slate of games this Friday.